This is the Note Closers Show, where you get the latest developments in distressed note investing and learn the secrets of how you can control millions of dollars worth of property for pennies on the dollar. Get educated and entertained by someone who has closed thousands of deals and lives to support you in achieving the same. Now, here's your host, CEO of We Close Notes, Scott Carson.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Note Closers Show. I'm your host, Scott Carson, CEO of We Close Notes. It's good to be back in the office after taking a couple days to be in South LA, or in LA Live at the Content and Commerce Convention we had put on by Digital Marketing. Really enjoy going to that event. Any type of digital marketing conference that they put on, whether it's put on by, well, all of them put on by Deanna Rogers, now my good friend and actually first ever assistant, but it's always nice to surround yourselves with thousands of other entrepreneurs that are like-minded. And it's great to pick each other's brains, talk to people. What are you doing? What are you doing? Meeting with vendors and literally learning things that can take your business to a whole different level. And yes, we've taken a couple days off from, filming the podcast on a regular basis and our Facebook live streams with us, just because I'm literally attending almost every section of that as best as I can and getting as much knowledge as I can actually absorb, because a lot of times there's so much content given, it's hard to realize what actions you need to take when you come back for an event like that. So yesterday was a busy day of travel. We got back, and then also we had seats to Depeche Mode concert here at the Austin 360 Amphitheater. For those that don't know, Depeche Mode is Stephanie Goodman's favorite band. Dave gone. She's got a little bit of a crush on him, but we had second row seats right in, not quite front and center, but pretty close. So I had a great time with that last night. But literally one of the things I do when I travel is I always try to put into, I take things out of what I've learned over the last couple of days and put it on paper on things that I'm going to implement. And a couple cool little websites that will help, peak some traffic. They'll peak people opting into or learning more information or opting into our videos and our webinars. Some really cool stuff that I'm actually seeing a couple people that I respect using that I didn't know what it was until just this weekend. So I will share those because I want those to be little insider secrets of what we do. But lots of great stuff. You'll see some things going forward if you follow us on Facebook or LinkedIn or anything like that over the next few weeks, some of the stuff that we're doing. But anytime I walk out of a marketing event like that, I always almost want to come back and just explode everything, literally just blow everything up and rebuild it. And what's great is the timing of that convention, whether we're just going in the last 3 months of the year, last 4 months of the year before too long. It's hard to believe that we've got 3.5 months left. Is it allows us some time to ramp up into the beginning and changes of 2018. Now, if you aren't already planning your 2018, you should be. And some of you are like, oh my gosh, I haven't even gotten close to my goals for 2017. So if you're in that position, start now, start something, do something. Any type of momentum you can build now to the end of the year will help your 2018 be more successful. Don't put off, I'll wait till the beginning of the year, I'll wait till New Year's resolutions. Quit putting off your dreams and start doing some things. So what I wanted to start off this morning or this afternoon or this evening, whenever you guys are watching this, is share with you the very easiest way to make money in notes. All right. And it's an easy way to do it. It's just that it takes a little bit of work. While it's easy to do, you actually don't make as much money if you had the huevos to continue on. And what am I talking? I'm talking about wholesaling. Wholesaling is a very, very easy way to make money in notes. And as we get into the last part of the year, it's kind of definitely a way to make some money as you're dealing with hedge funds and other things that have stuff or inventory on their books that they want to move. And we'll get into a little bit of that there. But let's first talk about what wholesaling is. All right. And totally, if you're watching on the Facebook live stream, to ask questions, one of the easiest ways, we'll make sure and get those questions answered for you. But wholesaling is only going to be effective in one of two ways. One, you've got to market because you've got to have a buyer's list. Okay. And two, you got to know what people want. All right. What are they looking for? Now, the third thing is you got to have sources to move stuff with. All right. Having a big buyer's list and building a big database of buyers or network is only good if you've got something to provide to them, okay? So when I first started the note business, that's what I had to do because I didn't have any capital, and it was a downturn of '08, all right, 2007, 2008, where a lot of people didn't understand note investing. They understood the fix and flip side, they understand rentals, but they didn't always understand the note game. So I had to find buyers that want a specific type of properties. I had to find buyers that wanted assets in really faster foreclosure states for the most part. Or I had to find assets that were extremely desirable and then help sell those assets with a due diligence aspect. And I think that's one thing that wholesalers really drop the ball on, is they don't work through the due diligence of an asset and understand why that asset is attractive. A lot of people I got a deal for sale. It's at 80% of as is value, or 80% of ARV, and they don't. Oh, it only needs $5,000 repairs. Well, that's not the case at all. The best wholesalers are those people that not only have a big list, but they also understand the deal. They sell the deal for its true components, not its theory, but it's realistic data. It's realistic numbers, if that makes sense. Okay. Now, wholesaling is also most effective when you can find assets below 50% of value. Now, that's the hardest part in today's market. If you're buying one-off notes, a lot of sellers are going to want stuff at 45, 55 or more percent of value. This is where it's going to take the work of reaching out to hedge funds and other banks, and why it's most effective this time of the year, the last quarter of the year, because banks often have stuff on their books that they need to get rid of. Now they're more willing to take a little bit less of a price because now they're motivated to move it. Now they may want 50 cents, 60 cents on the dollar now. If you can get them down to 50 cents, or you find out that asset doesn't move and you keep following up with it, and you get to the 1st of December, and you can get them, you can close before December 27th or December 30th. December 29th will be the last Friday of the year. Okay, so if you can close prior to December 29th, they'll often be motivated to work with you. All right. So the key component is getting a list of assets in, looking through it, finding a price point that makes sense. Okay. And then buying yourself some time to market to your database. Now, as I said before, you want to be at the 50% of value or less, preferably. Now, wholesale fees, wholesale can be a flat fee, flat $1,000, $2,000, $5,000. It can also be a percentage, 1%, 2%, 3%. All right. It varies on the asset by how much it holds. Now, what you don't want to do is try to sell an asset that your wholesale fee is enormous, where it takes it above like 70% of value. You might as well just not do it, because that's a waste of time. Well, I got to make $5,000. Well, the deal's not going to hold $5,000. Maybe you're lucky to get $1,000 or $2,000 as a wholesale fee. It's better to get 100% of something versus 100% of nothing. Okay, right? I got to give a shout out here. Just realized, Bill, love the little freaking condition red. Exactly. All right, that's what I was trying to get to. I love noisemakers, but anyway, condition red is if you have an asset under contract and you don't have a buyer, or you're trying to wholesale it for a price that takes it out of the deal, where your wholesale fee is 30% or something like that. Now, don't get me wrong, I have had wholesale fees that range from $500 to $100,000 before. All right, $100,000 was a 16-unit apartment complex in LA a few years back. Okay, those things aren't around. Normally, it's going to be like 1 to 3 percentage points of the funding amount or a flat fee. Now, I have to give a big shout out to Patty Ped of Pennsylvania. We helped Patty wholesale an asset, a second lien out of Salt Lake City that she made $5,000 on. Okay, she was all worried about. She found this asset that made sense as a second lien. I don't buy seconds, but the great thing about it is she had it at such a good price. There was equity behind what she had under contract for, and the buyer was willing to pay her $5,000 wholesale fee. So congrats to her. That was her first wholesale deal. She's funded a couple deals, bought a couple deals, and found something that had value to it to make to move. She marketed the asset to her database, provided the due diligence information direct from the bank, and it was a true win-win. Now, the nice thing about it too, it was straight from a bank, and the bank was willing to allow her to wholesale. That's a kind of a rocky ledge you got to be careful with when you're balancing on, because a lot of banks don't want to deal with brokers. They have their own brokers. Okay, what you have to do is you have to approach the bank that you're buying for your own investment portfolio. And then what I like to do is simply say, hey, this doesn't meet our criteria, but I have one of our investment partners who is interested in this. You mind if I send it over to them to take a look at? And a lot of times, as long as you're upfront with people about that, often have the new buyer, the person you're moving it to, sign a non-disclosure agreement that doesn't violate the bank's interest. You're okay. That's a huge thing when you're looking at that. You want to make sure you're not getting cost blasting these banks' lists out, because that's the easiest way to get blacklisted really, really fast. Okay, and also, don't market yourself as another company. Market your own company. We've had people that were trying to market deals as us, as We Close Notes, and then I had the banks call me, like, hey, this guy's marketing as he works for you. I'm like, no, he does not. Okay, never been associated. Ran into that guy this weekend. Kind of funny. He kind of avoided my stare and kept going the other way. Not a smart thing to say you're with We Close Notes or Inverse Asset or whatever. Okay. So, finding a bank is a little harder to do, but it's still putting under contract. Actually, let me rephrase that. A bank, if you can get a list of assets from a bank, it's often easier to wholesale bank assets because they give you 30 to 45 days to close. Whereas a hedge fund might have more assets that they'll let you wholesale, but they want you to close faster. That's why, as you get to the end of the year, a strategy that usually doesn't work most of the year comes into play. I don't know if I should share this. This is like a great nugget. This is like gonna be some money made. Okay, literally, you guys are gonna love it. You'll be like running, screaming. Not doing that. That's the wrong little emoji. Sorry. Be like, that's crazy. Okay. Yes, I'm playing with my noisemakers today.
So happy to be back.
I'm happy to be back in the office. Yes. So the biggest thing that you can do, sometimes I'll have hedge funds that send me lists that they want me to buy or they want me to help them move. And oftentimes we will put everything under an option agreement. Now, options are a great way. You put an option on a contract, put an option on a piece of property. It's the same thing with the notes. You put an option on notes. Basically, what that option is what the price that the seller wants to sell the asset at. Okay. Now, you've heard of exclusive options where you're the only one that has it under option for a week or 30 days. When I talk with the hedge funds, I often will talk to them and say, okay, you've got this list. I don't want to buy the whole thing, but tell you what, give me a non-exclusive option agreement. And they're like, what's that? Seriously, they are like, huh? You can't do this with banks. Okay. Bank's not going to give you an option on a note. They're definitely not going to give you a non-exclusive option on a note either. What a non-exclusive option is when you have the seller, a hedge fund or a private seller, give you the asset, not give you the asset, but give you the price of the asset. All right. And it allows you to go out and market it. Now, they have the right to still sell it to somebody else, but the option agreement gives you the first right of refusal. Okay. Gives you the first right of refusal so that if they do find a seller, they come back to you. You have the right to either match that price, beat it, or just say, forget it and move on. And it takes it off your board. Now, what I like doing this is some hedge funds, they'll send me lists. They're like, I got to move this stuff, but they don't have the list. They don't have the database that we do. They don't have the marketing skills. And so for $10, yes, for $10, we'll have them sign an option agreement on a whole tape or a chunk of the assets, and they'll give me their rock bottom price. Now, I've done this several times the last couple of years. Always ends up being the last quarter of the year. It is a phenomenal strategy if you really have a motivated seller to move some stuff. Because now you basically have all the win-win of it. Hey, you got the low bottom price. You have the right to, you're not under contract to really have to close on these, and you're not out of a lot of money. It also, one of the things I also like to do, depending on the seller of the assets, is I'll often incentivize them after a specific point. That gets them working with me. I'll give you an example. A couple years ago, we had a fund. It's no longer in business anymore. They had about $1.6 million in assets. That's what the bid was. That's what their rock bottom price was. $1.6 million. And we put it under a non-exclusive option agreement for $10. And I told them to listen, give me 30 days to move a chunk of these. Give me a non-exclusive, give me the first right of refusal if you do end up selling them. And I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. Anything that I can move $2,000 over your rock bottom price, I'll split those commissions with you. But if it's $2,000 or less, I keep the full $2,000 for my time. If it's over $2,000, what I'll do is I'll split that overage 75-25 with you. So it's if we made $3,000 in a wholesale agreement with a wholesale investor, I kept the first $2,000. The final $1,000 of the commission, they got extra $250 and I got $750. And they were very overjoyed for that. So literally all of like November, this happened right at around the week before Thanksgiving. So I was literally busting butt for a month and a half up till December 30th. I ended up moving about 30 assets. I made $150,000 in wholesale fees off of these assets because I just churned and burned. Some I made $10,000, some I made $2,000. Okay. Some I made $500 just to get them moved. But it was a beautiful thing because I was able to sell them off one at a time. It gave me the flexibility. The hedge fund was willing to work with me, and for $10, it was a very nice Christmas. Now, if I'd been really smart, I would have funded that $10,000 or the $10 with my self-directed IRA as option agreement on all these, and I could have put all $150,000 in profits back into my IRA, tax-free if it was a Roth, or tax-deferred if it was a traditional. Now, I needed the money at that point, but that's why I didn't go back in my IRA. But I could have done a variety. I could have been $10 on half and then $10 on another half. I just had some of it in my IRA and other of it not. But wholesaling is really easy to do. It's not a complicated process. Now, what does get tricky, actually, before we dive into that, do we have any questions, Nicole, from anybody? Okay. I see a lot of people liking it and jumping onto it here in the Facebook Live, which is good. So what gets tricky is how do you get paid and how do you structure that? Everybody's like, how do you structure it? So first thing first, one, you have a contract from the bank or the hedge fund, right? From them to you for the property or the note, okay? Now, if you go out and find somebody, let's say Marcus from Vegas sees that I'm marketing a property, he wants to wholesale. He wants to buy that deal from me, okay? I have two options. One, I can either do a double contract, another contract from me to Marcus, and say, let's say I'm buying the asset at 50, I would just make the second contract be 55 if I want to make $5,000 wholesale fee, okay? If it makes sense. If the asset's worth 100, that would make sense, right? So maybe for Marcus, I might charge him 10, but anyway. What I'm trying to get at is I could either do a double contract, another contract where it's the whole same thing. It's the parties have changed. So he signs that where he funds me, boom, we go from there. So I could have it in contract. I would have to provide the due diligence files to him and share that stuff. But you always make your wholesale buyers sign an NCND because you don't want them going around you, going direct to the source. Now that happens a lot with a real traditional wholesale and a real estate investing. People will find out the seller, go knock on the borrower's door or whoever and try to steal your wholesale deal. And notice it's not that easy because it's not the same players. And a lot of times you don't know who the actual note holder is or you don't have access to those people like you would a realtor or somebody else or a homeowner if you're a wholesaler. So there's two ways. One, we do, like I said, do a double contract, or we just do a flat wholesaling agreement. It's a one-page agreement. It says, hey, we're outlining that, hey, it's wholesale agreements attached. It becomes part of the second contract, the contract that you're having signed. Basically, it's a one-page agreement that refers to the contract that, hey, you're buying it not from me, you're buying it from ABC Bank or ABC Funds. Okay, you're paying $50,000 to the bank, and then you're going to pay $5,000 wholesale to me. That's usually one of the easiest ways. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if you trust the people you're working with, you've worked with them before, you've traded with them, just doing the one-page wholesale agreement is the easiest thing. How do they fund that deal? Well, then they will send basically two wires. They'll send a wire to the bank, and then they'll send a wire to you. Okay, and then what you do is you instruct the bank and say, "Listen, I need the bank. We're changing the name on the contract. We're changing who the assignments are going to be made out to. We need to make it out to Marcus Vegas, okay, instead of Scott Carson, okay." What you could also do is you just set up an escrow account, especially if you're not working with somebody if you're dealing with somebody you've never dealt with before, you don't know from Adam, and you get kind of a sneaky feel in your gut. What I would do then is set up an escrow account with a real estate attorney. Local real estate attorney can set one up for you for $500. This is what they're charged to do. It's just basically, bam, they're just controlling the money. So let's say I didn't know Marcus. Never dealt with him before. So he's kind of a shady Vegas character, okay? And Marcus, is it Marcus? If you're listening, great. So in that case, I would have a contract saying you're buying at 55 from me. He wires the money into the escrow account. All right. We then take 50 grand of that money and wire it directly to the bank. Okay. The bank then provides the documentation, the transfer documents, which we tell them what to do. Okay, we need to change the information. Then they ship those documents to us. Then we ship those documents directly to Marcus. We handle it. We tell, get all the information, Marcus service provider, who is servicer, where the documents goes, and we share that to the bank. And once that's transferred over, then we take the $5 grand wholesale fee out of escrow. Sometimes, especially when you're dealing with somebody new, they don't want to wire 55 grand to you right off the blue. All right. So that gives them a level of comfort. Yeah, you're only make $4,500 instead of $5,000 because you got a $500 fee to the attorney, but it's well worth it to add that comfort level to your buyers. Okay. Now, oftentimes, the real estate attorney will double check with whoever wired the funds in to make sure it's okay to release those funds to you, and that's fine. What you don't want to do is, a lot of times, we've had this happen before, and plenty of people have had this before, where they set up agreements, where it's two agreements, and the instructions relate to the bank of where everything's supposed to be transferred to. The investor wires one wire for 50 grand, everything gets transferred, but they don't end up wiring the extra wholesale fee. That's not a fun time to play in. Especially if you've already, what you don't want to do is introduce the seller to the bank without having an agreement in place. Okay? Because I've seen this is kind of what I call dirty pool. Okay? Where the buyer your buyer gets introduced to the bank, you're introduced to the bank, and they stop dealing with you, they stop going through you, and then you don't know what's going on. Now the bank, they don't close, the bank gets pissed off at you because you provide a seller who is flaky. It looks bad on you. So I don't like to give up those relationships. Hey, you got to go through me. It's not a daisy chain. It's going to be just one thing. Now, I'm never going to deal one to a broker. That's a long daisy chain. You have that happen a lot of times. That's not a smart, effective thing. What you want to do when you're buying assets from a wholesaler, or if you're wholesaling, hey, have that contract that shows from the seller to you. That's an important thing. That's why banks are a little bit easier to deal with on this, because they're used to giving you 30 to 45 days to close. Okay? Hedge funds, they're going to want you to close in 3 to 7 days. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Plus, doesn't make a lot of sense that way, because you got to move fast unless you've got a list of investors ready and you know exactly what they want and you've done the due diligence and you provided everything. That's great. Okay? But if you haven't done that, trying to wholesale an asset isn't going to be worth your time. You've got to find something that honestly gives you a bit longer than 7 days to be able to work your magic. Okay? Questions or comments from anybody?
You got one. Scott Hartwell, how do you come up with the number for your wholesale fee?
Scott, that's a very good question. How do you come up with a target for your wholesale fee? You want to be below, I think the better the deal below 55%, the better. So that's really easy, Scott. So if the deal makes sense, it will make sense at $55,000. If it's a no deal, you got to foreclose, and it's occupied, doesn't need a lot of repairs, great. But if it needs a lot of repairs and stuff, you got to figure that into your number. Okay. So I don't usually like to be above 55, 60 cents on the dollar, only if it's in like almost an REO, almost a foreclosure phase. Okay. So if you get under a contract for 50, then I'd be 55% of value, then I would be selling it at 55 or 60% of value. If I get under a contract for 50, I'd be selling it at 55%. So that's what I come up with. Something that makes sense. Now, if I get something under contract for 25, I'm not going to turn around and try to sell it at 50. That's just way too big a spread. Oftentimes, when the buyers find out what you have it under contract for, they're not going to be the happiest that you're making such a huge chunk of money. You got to leave plenty of meat on the bone when it comes to your wholesaler buyer, because that's what you want them to close. You don't want animosity to build up when they find out what you're making 50 grand on the deal. Now, if it's a bigger asset, that's a different story. But if it's a $100,000 asset, you're making 40 grand in a wholesale fee. You probably need to shave that down some. It's better, like I say, get a deal closed, make some money, and move on versus trying to hit a home run out of the park. Okay, wholesalers, I see this happen all the time. First of all, wholesalers don't ask for a low enough price, then they add on a $5 grand or whatever to the top of it, and then shoots it out of the park or blows it out of the water because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't fall into a number that's going to work for your end buyers. Okay.
Another question.
Yep.
Todd LaPierre asked, Are you upfront with the seller that you're wholesaling the note?
So great question, Todd. Great meeting you this last weekend at Distressed Mortgage Expo as well. Am I upfront that I'm wholesaling the note? Is that what he asked?
Yes.
Yes. I communicate in the front, hey, this is an asset I'm wholesaling. I have it under contract, and I'm looking to wholesale it. The biggest thing you've got to share with it is that you have the contract. A lot of people will send that stuff, and they won't have anything under contract. Okay? This is why it's important to be invested in the deal and understand the numbers and work through the due diligence aspect of it. Okay? Knowing true value, taking a second to have a realtor drive by a property or somebody go buy the property. Finding a recent photo online is really nice and helpful, but it doesn't always work. Okay? Calling to check the taxes, calling to find out all the things that can go wrong with it is important, because last thing you want is your wholesale buyer to come back and say, well, there's $4,000 in back taxes owed. Well, yeah, I knew that. That's figured into here. The more you know about the deal, the more due diligence you've done yourself, the better it is to help wholesaling. Now, 2 Mondays ago, we talked about fishing for funding, okay? We talked about putting a deal together. The thing that I went through on that webinar is something that you could very simply do when you're wholesaling too, because it gives you a lot of information to give to your wholesale buyer. The less due diligence that they've got because you've done it all for them, puts a nice, clean, pretty bow on that package so that they don't have to really sit there and recheck everything. Yes, I always say, verify my numbers. If I tell you something, verify. That's why it's important to run values. Have a realtor pull a CMA for you so you know the true value of the asset. Okay? What a lot of wholesalers do is they'll list the property, oh, it's worth 100 with this estimate. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Okay? I saw somebody post on a property in Houston. They're selling it for 85% of value. And I'm like, 85% of value? That doesn't make any sense. And he goes, well, landlords will buy it at 85 cents all day. I'm like, well, good for you. That's a retail buyer. It's not a wholesale buyer. You know, you have to be careful and not try to take the whole turkey. All right. You got to leave plenty of leftovers for your buyers when it comes to the turkey of the deal. Okay. Other questions from people. So very simple, one-page wholesale agreement is really easy, or it's a double contract, like a double closing. Okay. They wire money into your escrow, the realtor's escrow account. You turn around and immediately wire the money out. I'll give you a couple examples. One of the first deals we did was with Capital One, and it was on a 8-unit apartment complex in San Diego. Now, the numbers on it were really good. See, the bank actually provided a BPO showing the property being worth $699,000. All right? Relatively BPO, less than 3 months old. The borrower owed $548,000 and some change. Okay? So there was equity there. There's $150,000 in equity above what they owed. Well, the bank was motivated to get it sold. It was one of a huge list of assets they had. So we offered originally $350,000. They countered at $375,000. I didn't argue on the $375,000 number. I said, done. Now, I knew what it was worth. Okay. I also knew that it wasn't the biggest apartment complexes. There was plenty of people that would want to jump on this one because I had buyers literally right around the property. The place that this was in San Diego is surrounded by small 6, 8, 5, 12-unit apartment complex. I could have literally gone to any owner in that strip area and sold this asset off if I wanted to. Okay. So what I did, we had it contract for $375,000. I ran an ad on Craigslist and an email out to my database. Picture of the property. Here's the numbers. $699, fully occupied. Here's the market rates. Here's a listing from the apartment complex. Here's some photos from the units where the landlord had shown photos previously before. We had somebody take street views on it and said, listen, here's what it would be. Boom, we're trying to sell this at $425,000. We're trying to make a $50,000 wholesale fee on the deal. And we had 30 days to close. Okay, well, we ran that ad. I mean, we done a lot of due diligence before we went under contract. I mean, Capital One went to put the apartment under contract. That's when we started marketing. All right, we had our contract. I didn't have the funds in-house to fund it, although I wish I did. All right, but I didn't at the time. I had a investor, Matt Harder, who was on my email database, reach out to me and say, hey, I see this asset. I'm in San Diego myself. I'm interested in learning more about it. What can you tell me? So I sent him the full due diligence package. Everything I got from the bank, as far as collateral file, BPOs, everything I sent over to him. And I said, listen, I am wholesaling this. I knew Matt. I dealt with Matt before. I hadn't bought assets with him, but I known him for a couple of years. And I just told him, I said, listen, hey, we're wholesaling this, selling it to at $425. It's worth $699. Matt came back to me about 3 days later, said, okay, we want to do this. We're funding the money with myself. I've got about $415. Would you be willing to drop your price down by 10 grand or 15 grand to help make this work for us? And I said, well, what's it? He said, well, he was putting up a chunk of money. And 2 other investors, they were pooling their funds together to buy this asset. And I was like, so when can you close on this number at 435, you tell me? Or 415. And he goes, I can close in 3 days. I'm like, done. Okay. So not 415, 410. Because we're basically, it's a $35,000 fee. So that's fine. Boom, done. I sent him my copy of the contract from Capital One and the wholesaling agreement for 35 grand. I said, okay, here you go. He signed off on both of them. He was happy with them both. Because when I sent a copy of the contract from Capital One, it had all the things how to be filled out. And so we went ahead, refilled them out for him. Okay. We went ahead and put an escrow account in place. Just make it simple. So he wired in. I think we signed everything on Thursday afternoon. Monday morning, I walk in the office. I can remember the feeling of logging into my bank and my escrow account and seeing $410,000 staying there. I got up and danced a happy dance all day long. Okay, I don't think my feet touched the floor that day. Okay, it was really, really nice. Immediately went down to the bank. Funds were clear. It was at Capital One. We turned around and wired out the $375 to Capital One. All right. The 35 grand stayed in there was our wholesale fee. Dancing a happy jig at the bank. Of course, the banker's like, "What did you do? What do you do? Tell me what you do." You know, you got to talk to a couple of our investors. I know a couple of people in real estate you need to talk to. We kept the 35,000. Matt got the file transferred over to him from Capital One. He made out like a bandit as well. I think about 8 months later, he was able to get the borrower to get him refinanced out at 548. So they made $130 some odd thousand dollars, $138,000 for him and his 2 business partners. So it was a win-win for him. And that's the one thing you have to realize. Could I have probably sold it at the true 425 and made some more money? Yeah, I probably could have. But I had somebody who was willing to do it and they could fund immediately. And you've heard about Velocity Capital. And I knew Matt. I trusted Matt. I'm like, okay, done. Let's get it done. Sure enough, boom, he performed. We followed along with him on that after the sale. We helped. There was an assignment or two missing or error on the assignments, trying to get things recorded. So we got them redone. I think we had to get an assignment done 3 times. But we helped facilitate that with him to kind of, okay, let's stay in the deal. And I know Matt was happy with the asset. He took his wife to Hawaii afterwards. He sent me a copy of the check from the closing table. He's like, hey, thanks, let's do some more. So that's a great example of a wholesaling thing when you deal with somebody. I have wholesale other properties too where I didn't trust the individual. They had to do a double contract. We recreated a contract from us to them. Basically, it was the same wording, same exact contract I got from the bank. I just changed some things up. I changed the names around and the amount. And provided that as a contract with the same reps and warranties that the existing contract had. And that worked out really, really well. And, we did one that was basically, we had in a contract for 6, we sold it for 10, made $4,000 on it. Another one, we bought it for 3,700. We sold it for 15 grand, made 11.5 on it. Just turn and burn. That's what I started doing initially. And the beautiful thing is what I would do with those assets is once we would close, what did I do with those? Well, I then advertised, hey, we just moved this apartment deal. We moved this duplex deal. We moved this strip mall. I advertised these things on Facebook and LinkedIn, and that led to more people coming to see the deals. That's literally how I started to make a name for myself online on Facebook and LinkedIn, was just sharing what I was doing, sharing the deals that I was closing. Like I said before, Patty Ped shared an image, an infographic. Hey, they just moved this deal at like 33% of UPB, something like that the other day, if I remember correctly. I am the ISR on. I see everything. Okay. So, and That's great. I mean, some people, hey, $5,000 will cover your monthly nut and what you need, your expenses and everything pretty easy. Okay. Let alone you make 35,000, that'll put you on easy. Sometimes that's 7 months of money for us. Okay. So, or for you is what I'm trying to get at. So what I'm trying to say is wholesaling is not difficult. You just have to differentiate yourself from all the other sleazeball wholesalers that are trying to put something in a contract. They're trying to throw as much stuff against the wall as they possibly can. Look at the assets. Understand, hey, what's the rent rate? What is it occupied? Call the utility department, okay? Check the taxes owed. Have a realtor drive by, take a photo for you. It's well worth paying $50 to try to make $5,000, all right? It's so well worth it. If the seller provides a BPO and O&E, great, all right? Phenomenal, all right? That helps you out tremendously in the long run because it gives you more due diligence to add to your seller package. Okay, I at a peak, I think we were moving about one small apartment complex a month. Two in Dallas, 2 in Houston, 1 in Charlotte, 1 in LA, another one in Salt Lake City, 1 in Phoenix. It was a really good stretch there for a while when Capital wanted to sell a lot of their assets off. I mean, we had exclusive access to this because we were like one of 500 total investors that were on their note buyers list. We moved one in Miami. We killed the deal in Miami. There's another deal we were getting ready to wholesale. And this is funny. The bank, my asset manager, they sends me a list. Say, hey, Scott, that we had this one fall back into our lap. The seller didn't close on to it. It's a 35 unit in Miami. Are you interested? I'm like, yes, I'm interested. So literally we pulled photos online. And then we sent a realtor out there in the process. So as we were starting to get interest on it, because we already had our apartment buyers and our other investors list, the realtor called me and said, you don't want this one, Scott. I'm like, what's wrong? So he forwarded me photos. It was literally like crack Vogue, okay? What I mean by crack Vogue is all the windows were boarded up. You had crackheads hiding behind mattresses outside. I mean, they were like posing on the corners. It was an ugly property. So what I did is I forwarded those photos directly over to the asset manager, and literally about 10 minutes later, the phone rings. I can tell they have me on speakerphone because I can hear people laughing in the background as they're looking at the photos of the apartment complex. So I called my buyers that were interested in those deals, and I was like, listen, this is not a deal. And he's like, no problem. And I was talking to the asset manager, and she's like, how much money do I have to pay you to take this asset? And that would have been a really good thing to put in an option, just find somebody if I wanted to. But I was like, I don't want to deal with it. That's a difficult type of property. I see a lot of investors that get romanticized by the unique deal, the one-off deal. Like I've had people that try to wholesale an 800-acre equestrian farm or some big commercial unfinished project. Those things just don't make any money. If you're spending your time wholesaling and you have no reserves, you got to spend time in the bread and butter plays, the single-family homes, the small duplexes, triplexes, small apartments. Those are the ones that are going to move the best for you. All right? Those are the ones that are going to work the best. Now, at Distress Mortgage Expo, we had a Shark Tank that I was on. And got to give a big shout out to Jason Gray. Jason Gray brought up a commercial, 2-story commercial building in Georgia. I think Savannah. I'm not exactly sure where it was, but talking about how it was occupied. And the numbers didn't make sense because the hard money lender was trying to sell it off at par. And it didn't really make sense to move it, okay, based on the equity in the deal. But if Jason stays with that asset, he may be able, as it gets to, because the loan matures here in December, he stays with it, the hard money lender may be more and more motivated to move it, especially once he gets closer to December or beyond it now where it's in default. At that point, it may be something that he wants to market out to because there was interest in the property. You just got to get that price down to the point where it makes sense below what was owed because there was literally only about 49% of LTV of where the loan was at, all right? It was an owner-occupant too. So the person that owned the property was the tenant in there and the psychologist. So it's like our psychiatrist wanted to. I think we got a question, Nicole.
Yes. Axel asks, how long from start to finish did it take to sell that asset?
Start to finish on the apartment complex in San Diego. I think we got the list and immediately started focused on the San Diego one because we knew how hot that market was. So I want to say about 45 days because it took us a little time going back and forth, understand due diligence on it. We got a bid in on it. I will tell you this. I knew that I had 30 days to close. That helped out tremendously. All right. Now, I was able to close faster than 30 days, obviously. But literally, I think it was about about 30 days start to finish. About a week to review the assets. We got a contract offer in. They accepted our offer. That's the first 10 days. And then as far as, putting the package together and then marketing it out is kind of, another week and a half with that. But it helped that we had the time frame to move some stuff. Wholesaling will move pretty fast, okay? You got to deal with cash buyers. You got to deal with people that are closing. What you don't want to do, you do not want to do is waste your time with tire kickers. And you'll have that happen sometimes. So what you want to do is make sure it's filtered through people. This is where you see a lot of people come through with letters of intent and proof of funds. Look, I don't need a letter of intent from you. If you're interested and you can put this under contract, I just know that you're going to have the funds and you can close in a timely fashion. Okay? But I don't also make people sign a non-disclosure agreement that they agree that they're not going to be blasting this out. If they do, I will blacklist them faster than anybody else out there. I will never do business with those people, okay? They burn the bridge, okay? So that's the important thing. Go ahead and have your people sign an NCND or, that's a non-compete, non-disclosure. That's not worth much. I mean, you're not going to take those people to court. Somebody was complaining on the other day about somebody who sent a non-compete, non-disclosure where they were wanting a 300% fee if somebody violated it. I'm like, that's stupid. That's a stupid clause in there. That's going to kill your business more than it's going to help you. Whenever I see that, stuff like that, I'm like, eh. Now, one thing you want to do in your non-compete, non-disclosure agreements is make sure you get paid something for the entirety of that person. If you end up meeting them directly, connecting them directly to the bank, make sure you put like a flat 3% fee off whatever they fund over the next 2 years or 3 years. Now, you're not really going to see much after 2 or 3 years. Most people are going to sign off it. You can't say lifetime of the relationship. That's kind of not going to happen. All right, but 2 years, 3 years, that's pretty normal. Be happy you're making something instead of nothing. All right, because honestly, if somebody really puts some work into some stuff, they might be able to find out who the lender is if they really do the work. All right, most people aren't going to do those extra steps with tracking that stuff down. But look, just sign an NCND, put a flat fee on there per asset, per funding amount for a period of time, and that's a great kind of relationship and stuff like that. But the thing you got to keep in mind is trust your gut. If somebody's shady, somebody just doesn't sound good, just move on. Just don't do business with shady people, right? Just if somebody's telling you one thing and you find out another thing, just don't do it. If you find out people are lying or telling you half-truths, just don't do business with those people. They're not going to, they're going to do things in the long run that aren't going to make it well for you, and they're going to burn the bridge. And most importantly, you don't want them to make you look bad to your buyers where you're getting these lists from, because that's the first thing. Hey, you sent me that jackass Jennifer. She didn't fund. All right, okay. She didn't fund. She's a flake, and that's where you're like, whoa, hang a second. That's why you got to be very careful with who you direct to. So, any questions out there from anybody? Okay, so wholesaling is great. The thing about wholesaling though is you leave a lot of money on the table. All right. For those of you that are doing all the marketing to move a wholesale deal, if you just twisted it one little bit, instead of you're wholesaling, you're looking for funding partners on this, I'd be willing to bet you could guarantee you could fund these at the same amounts that you're getting a wholesale. So you get a management fee or an extra bit on the front end, so you make some money and still stay in the deal in the long run. This is the hardest concept that we deal with the wholesalers. They don't have the huevos. They don't have the belief in that stuff. They're like, oh no, it's like hot potato. I don't want to take the deal out long term. Okay. This is where they get scared. No, I don't want to do the deal. No, just give me the $5,000. All right. If you structure and just tweak it a little bit, change the mentality. Instead of wholesaling, looking for a funding partner, oftentimes you'll be able to raise that capital and make things happen. A lot of realtors, a lot of wholesalers, they get into this business. They're so busy, they've taken so many wholesale courses. They've been a realtor for so long, they only value themselves at that 3 to 6 percentage points. And you have to stand and say, no, I'm not wholesaling on this. No, I'm not looking to sell this. I'm looking for a funding partner. Somebody come in and joint venture with me. I found the deal. I'll do the workout. You provide the funding. You provide the capital. We'll do the time and keep you involved. And that's an easy thing to do. You just got to change it up a little bit. You got to have some huevos to stand up and say, no, I'm not wholesaling. I'm not selling to you. And I see realtors struggle with this. Like, I'm only worth 6%. No, you're worth a whole lot more. You've heard the term, he who has the gold makes the rules, right, everybody? Well, in most of these cases, he who has the gold isn't the cash. The gold is actually the deal. The gold is that 6-unit apartment complex or that first lien non-performing that you have under contract for 45 cents on the dollar. That's the real gold. Because in an era where there's plenty of capital, and we all know there's plenty of private capital out there, deals become the real currency, not the cash that you have. Because literally, if you go out and network at Quest IRA events, or you go out and network literally at different networking clubs or REI clubs and meetings, things like that, you'll raise the capital. You just got to share what you've got. You got to open your mouth. Now, the best wholesalers are the ones that talk the most too. If you're introverted and quiet and don't share, it's going to be really hard for you to make some money, to make things happen. So wholesaling, not a hard thing to do, easy to do. The most difficult thing in this line of work right now is finding the deals that fall in below that 50, 60 cents on the dollar aspect of it, okay? Another thing that you might look at doing, this is I don't really call this wholesaling, but it's very similar to that. If you're dealing with private investors that are wanting to make, say, 8 to 10%, you got somebody that's got an IRA, they're happy with 10%, and you find a deal that's paying a performing note or performing contract for deed that's paying 15%. Okay? Somebody only wants to make 10, and you find somebody that's paying 15. Well, you can structure that deal where they fund that deal at the amount, okay, for the 10%, but you arbitrage it so that they're funding the whole thing, so you're making 5% off their money. What? Yes. That is an easy way to set up deals where, hey, you're still making them happy and you're getting a little bit over because the deal makes sense, okay? The deal makes sense of that numbers. Find something at 15, they're happy at 10, great. You pay them the 10, you keep the 5 for yourself. For basically, it's an infinite return on investment because you have none of your own money in the deal. All right. Now, I probably just opened another whole can of Pandora's box there. You're like, what? But that's an important thing to do too. Find cheap money. Go out and find a deal that's paying a 10 to 15%. Okay, 12 to 15%. There are plenty of reperformers out there, sellers selling reperforming notes at somewhere between that 12 to 15% range. If you can find somebody that wants 8 to 10% of their money in an IRA that they can't touch, that's a great way to step in, structure the deal, and have it done. Yes, what you would do in that case, you'd have them joint venture with you on the deal, or they're finding a specific amount for the cash flow to come back. And you're basically buying it at 20, maybe they're funding 25, boom. Whatever that amount coming on the 25 is paying that 15%, but they're happy with 10. There you go. You keep that difference. Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns from anybody out there? No. We're excited. We have our fast track training kicking off tomorrow here, being today's Thursday, tomorrow's Friday. So those that are listening out there, you probably get this on Monday on the podcast, but we have I think 8 or 9 investors come and spend 3 days with us, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday here in the offices. Always exciting to have new people that are going through our fast track training, becoming part of the mastermind. We'll focus the 3 days solely on their businesses. That's why we keep it small, and we've got a good variety of people coming in. Most of them are relatively new to the note space. I think 1 or 2 that have been around for a little bit, finding a couple of deals, but they want to get more. I guess you could say instead of just dipping their toe in the water, they want to dive head first. And so we're going to spend some time going through that, raising capital, going through the marketing of their business, the structures, the systems. As always, if you'd like to get more information on our fast track or note mastermind training, feel free to email me at scott@weclosenotes.com. Scott@weclosenotes.com. I'll get on the phone with you or put you in touch with our VP of Operations, Stephanie Goodman, who handles the boarding process for that. So lots of great little perks for the fast track and note mastermind. Reach out to us. We'll be glad to go through that there for you. But I will tell you this, we get excited when we have these because we know that people will be closing new assets. They're going to be going out, changing their lives, buying deals. I mean, I'm excited because we've got a list of assets for them to look at this weekend already, that they can bid on. We'll work through those deals. We'll end the class to help them identify things. We'll go through the different deal structuring with them. I'll actually get them on the dry erase board here, and they'll have to break down deals and understand the mentality of where the exit strategies fit into their business, if the deals make sense or don't make sense. So once again, Any other questions or comments from anybody out there? I think Nicole's answering stuff in the questions and comment section of Facebook Live here. If you're listening on iTunes, please do me a favor. If you love this episode, leave a review. This is kind of the first in a series of episodes on the different ways to make money in notes. Wholesaling is the easiest way. It's also one of the 9 or 10 extra strategies that you can do with notes. And we'll be going through kind of the strategies as each individual strategy as a whole, going through it. So, we're also, don't forget, guys and gals, we're about 2 weeks out, actually 3 weeks out from the next note camp. Actually 3 weeks from today, if I think about it, right? We're really excited about the lineup. We got some great stuff lined up for Note Camp 4.0. Just it's going to be a phenomenal event for those that are all opted in. Great. Once again, remember, if you use the special code podcast at notecamp.live, it'll give you a special discount off of the price. So I'm not going to tell you how much. You just need to go sign up for it. I'll tell you that. Good, well, lots of great stuff with that, everybody. So once again, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for all of those that asked questions. One thing that we will be doing here shortly is we'll have some call-ins on some topics, actually some live call-ins discussing exit strategies and some things like that. So stay tuned. If you're listening on iTunes or Stitcher or one of the podcast things and you'd like to get involved or have a topic that you'd like for us to discuss, feel free. Shoot me an email at scott@weclosenotes.com and we'll be glad to take a look at your topic and maybe even get you on live and have you pick our brains or us pick your brains and each be mind melding together in a Vulcan mind meld, everybody. So that's all I've got for this episode. I want to thank all of you for joining us. Yes.
Enterprise to Captain Kirk. Come in, Captain.
I'm coming in. We'll see you guys later and at the top, everybody. Have a great day.